Realism in WWE Games, specifically in the WWE 2K series, is something that the developers are trying to go for each and every year, with WWE 2K19 being the most realistic entry to date. Okay, maybe not in this case, but still, WWE games are becoming more and more realistic, and in some cases over the years, maybe a little bit too realistic. Now don't get me wrong, I do like realism in video games and WWE games, but sometimes it can be a little bit too much, where some of these things in this video are just bad design choices for the sake of realism. And before I get right into it, I just want to point out that not everything that makes an appearance in this video is actually a bad thing. Take GM mode for example, I love that mode and I really wish it would return, like right now 2K. But when it first showed up in SmackDown vs Raw 2006, it was realism that us WWE Games fans were not used to at the time. Keep in mind that this was still the era that not long ago had us jumping off helicopters and climbing to the top of the SmackDown arena fist and jumping off of it. I'm expected to efficiently run a wrestling show whilst also looking after the money, negotiating contracts, and keeping the roster happy enough without also causing major injuries. So I'm gonna go and guess that my grand idea of running a wrestling show that's just constant cage, TLC, Hell in a Cell matches is not going to work out. Oh, and Kurt Angle's already broke his leg. Then you have something in WWE games that's the complete opposite, like WWE 2K15's career mode, with realism that's just not very fun. I mean, who wants to be treated like an actual WWE superstar in real life with things like being told that we have nothing for you this week, so how about a match on main event or a dark match instead of a fun storyline to play out? Who thought this was a good idea at all? It all just stunk of filler to bloat a 3 to 4 hour at best career mode into something like a 14-hour career mode with tons of pointless matches with no storyline. I mean, in all fairness, it's realistic because there's so many superstars who work for the WWE who have heard the dreaded "crazy there's nothing for you" line. But let's be honest, that doesn't mean that people who play these games want that level of realism. Thankfully, WWE 2K19 released with a goofy career mode with wacky storylines that was actually pretty fun to play. Before there was WWE 2K19's redeeming wacky career mode, we got WWE 2K18's take on a career mode which made the same mistakes of WWE 2K15 by trying to make it an overly realistic career mode, but this time it was taken even further with 2K18. One of the main examples being that they had producers backstage like Baron Blade, who you had to talk to pretty much every single week throughout career mode, who will then give you the summary of what's going to happen tonight, even having goals like you have to lose tonight and put the other guy over. I don't know about you, but I don't want to play WWE games to purposely lose. I want to win. I mean, win when I can, because sometimes it doesn't go to plan. But anyway, I don't want to lose on purpose for the sake of realism. That's just stupid. On top of all that, when you've completed a week in WWE 2K18's career mode, you have to walk all the way back to the parking lot to leave for the next show in what feels like the slowest movement ever. Sure, it's realistic to actually leave the arena, but again, who wants to do that? Even after 2 weeks of this, it was already annoying. Once again, thank you 2K for getting career mode right in 2K19. It took a while, but we got there in the end. SmackDown Shut Your Mouth had a storyline take place very early into the season mode, which puts your character against another superstar in what was called a suspension match. Pretty much the loser of this match had to leave the WWE. If you did end up losing this match, you would not be seen until a pay-per-view 2 months later, where you'll be found in a bar drinking away at being fired from the WWE. You'll be offered to come back to the WWE at this pay-per-view, but it was your choice to either come back or continue to be a fired superstar. If you chose not to return, you will not be seen again for another 6 months, and announced that you'll be entering the upcoming Raw Rumble match. The realism that got too real in this scenario is just how long you actually got fired for. In total, you can be fired for 8 in-game months. In any other WWE Games storyline ever, you'll get fired and most likely rehired and back on the next show like nothing ever even happened. It was a very unique scenario that was never done before and will probably never be done ever again. Day of Reckoning 2 was the first WWE game to give us an actual stamina system. Before that, we could do pretty much anything, run around without any consequence, not a problem. But all that changed with Day of Reckoning 2's stamina system. Unlike the main series, it was not optional or something you could just turn off if it got too annoying, or should I say too realistic for you. It was also a lot more unforgiving, as that stamina would drain really quick. It wouldn't just magically come back for no reason. The only way it would come back is if you didn't press anything at all to take your rest, or you can actually even choose to perform a rest hold to regain that stamina, which is something that you actually see happen on WWE TV when a superstar is tired and needs a rest. You could even lose stamina by taking a beating to the point where if you got busted open, you would permanently lose chunks chunks of stamina from your stamina meter, and then end up having a smaller and smaller stamina meter. That's how far Realism went with Day of Reckoning 2's stamina system. In Raw 2's season mode, you could do a bunch of stuff like set some traps, have a backstage brawl, call people out, or get into arguments, and so much more. But doing these activities will come at a cost, as you will lose spirit points in Raw 2's case. And you might be wondering, what is the actual way to regain spirit in Raw 2? It was to just have a rest. Like many of the things mentioned already in this video, who wants to choose to take a rest in WWE Games? Again, it is realistic. I mean, setting up all those traps is probably a tough task with all that planning and science behind it, but I guess. Yeah, they probably deserve a little bit of a rest, I think. But it's just the type of realism we don't really need. Sorry, in-game characters, but you're not getting any of your programmed rest in my playthrough. Ha 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 ha. SmackDown vs Raw 2008 introduced us to 24/7 mode. If you haven't played SmackDown vs Raw 2008 before, you're probably wondering, what is 24/7 mode? It was a career mode that literally allowed you to do something pretty much every day in a week calendar. Let's say you was on the Raw brand, for example. You would have your match on the Monday, and then any day after that was up to you what you did. You could choose from the many possible events like starring in a movie, taking part in a press conference, doing an autograph signing, and many things you would expect an actual WWE superstar to do away from shows, which added to the over-the-top realism that 24/7 mode had. You was actually living a 24/7 lifestyle of a WWE superstar, which is something that was never done in a WWE game ever. And it didn't just stop there. You could sustain random injuries that would affect your character's different body parts during matches for certain time periods, whilst actually not giving you time away to heal up from the injuries. If you also improved your character by gaining popularity and winning matches, you would even get raises in your salary that you would earn from being a WWE superstar. I don't think any other WWE career mode in a WWE game has gone this far with realism ever. WWE 2K15 was the real beginning of the 2K era of WWE games, and with the change began a much bigger push towards realism, including the gameplay. One realistic gameplay mechanic that was heavily pushed in WWE 2K15 was the new lockup system, which would initiate at the beginning of every match that you would have, unless you changed up the gameplay sliders to get rid of them. If you did keep them on, then you should remember how every single match would have this realistic yet completely repetitive system that would just ruin your excitement for an upcoming match if you wanted it to be a match that gets right into the action, rather than a chess match of who can fill their lockup meter first. Even in this footage I'm showing you right now, I'm trying to make this match as fast as possible, but I still got caught in that hold. It's like the game was saying, no, you will not avoid this. It will happen like it does on TV. Fortunately, the lockups would be changed in future WWE 2K games, with them not being forced upon you at the start of each match. SmackDown vs Raw 2010 would take the damage system to different levels that we had not seen before. If you took too much damage to, let's say, your leg, then you will see your character limping on it and struggling to walk on it, even getting to the point where if you run on the injured leg, your character will fall down, which makes it not only harder to get the offense that you would like to get in, but it could allow your opponent to get a free hit while you're down. To try and actually fix this injury as best as possible, you would have to find the right opportunity to move the injured body part around, which was done by holding a certain button. It was the Y button on the Xbox 360, but it was never a guarantee to be a permanent fix, as it could become damaged again, to the point where you'd once again need to try and fix it. The system was realistic, but it's something that could be found really annoying, especially when you kept falling over the time if you had an injured leg. I mean, come on, it was only a little injury. I mean, look at him. You would think he has a broken leg by the way he's selling this kind of injury. When promos were added to WWE Universe mode in WWE 2K17, I never expected them to have the realism of actually cutting a terrible promo. As you have probably seen on WWE TV before, promos are not always a hit, with some of them actually being a pretty big miss. So yeah, this would actually become a feature with promos in the WWE 2K series, and how it would work is that your choices of what to say in the promos need to all come together and make sense. If you pick lines for your promo that doesn't really connect, then it will get a lower overall final rating, with the possibility of your promo being bad enough to the point where the commentary team will even say how bad that promo was. The problem here is that the promos that are actually making sense with the choices that you're picking can also sound pretty damn terrible still. And if you've watched some recent WWE shows, it is pretty realistic. But do we really want to cut bad promos because they actually happen on TV? I would prefer it if we could actually cut some decent promos that make enough sense for the rivalry that's taking place, instead of being able to cut a promo that's just absolutely terrible. And for honourable mentions of times WWE Games got a little bit too realistic, there was that time where you could build relationships with female superstars and go on dates with them in Raw 2 that for some reason never seemed to go to plan and end up with you being beat up by your rival. And if things were not going too well with them, then you could choose to break up with them and also get a slap in the face for doing it. And lastly, training in my career mode. From WWE 2K15 to 2K18, each and every year you had to go to the performance center to do some training before getting to NXT, which is what happens most of the time in WWE. Problem was, it was boring as hell to play through what was pretty much a tutorial, even though it was realistic. So that was the 10 times that WWE Games got a little bit too realistic. Do you agree with the choices that I made in this video? Did I miss any other examples of something in WWE Games being a little bit too realistic? If you do have any ideas that I did miss, make sure to leave those moments in the comments. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, or if you've not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. And I'll see you all on the next video.